What's going on? Move the mouse here, back in the city of Rockdale with our Let's Play City Skylines series part 3. And this one, I'm just building everything on camera. So in the previous series, I'd gone through some of the tips and tricks, some of the important things to know at each milestone, but I skipped over a lot of the stuff that I built. And there were enough of you out there that commented that you wanted to see all of the steps that I thought I would kind of talk you through as I build this city out. And we're still very much on the expansion here towards the river. What we've done though so far is built out these network of neighborhoods that are basically 9 blocks apiece, and they have reduced intersections with the cross streets. So you notice that these roads right now, the ones that technically run north to south inside the neighborhood, don't intersect with these main avenues, where the side avenues do. So this is all aimed at supporting as much traffic as possible so that we can kind of stamp this structure over here as well too, south of the industry area. And we're going to have our high density over here by the river. So let's take a quick look where we're at. So milestone wise, we're going to hit one at 8,500, and that's going to give us the metro. And that is by far one of the most exciting things for city growth for me, because you can really start to get people off the roads. But we've been planning to really be able to support that traffic as we go. So traffic's not as much of a problem as it would have been with some of the smaller streets that we were building. Let's do something now. I see we have a dump that's filled up already. We don't yet have the incinerator plant unlocked though, so we'll just let this other dump keep filling up in the meantime before we have to worry about anything else. We've started to build some industry up here, and in the last episode, we did start to look at those one-ways. The problem that we're having right now is we have a ton of these buildings getting abandoned because there just aren't enough workers. And part of the problem is people don't want to make the journey way over here. That is a problem that will go away once we have that metro unlocked. But right now we're losing citizens because we have such a huge residential demand. So let's start stamping out our next neighborhood. But to do that, I actually want to make an extra wide block in the middle here to support eventually what will be commuter rail above ground, not just metro, but commuter rail to support some of the movement around our greater metropolitan area. So for this one, I'm going to come over 3 blocks, and we're not going to do anything to zone in the middle right now. We're just going to leave this kind of wide open, and then we're going to start stamping more blocks over that way. So let's come up here and do the same thing. We'll come over 3 blocks. We'll move a couple people out in the process, and that's okay. But I want to just connect these main avenues, and that's about it. Now I want to start building out more of these neighborhoods that we saw before, and we'll start getting those populated. So let's come over 3. They'll let me snap just right. And then we'll come over to our 2-lane roads. I don't feel like that's the correct snap point, so let me see. I don't know why it's doing that. Right there should be our correct snap point. So we'll come over to that 10 line. We'll go up till we can't zone anymore. We'll just step right on the heels of that area. Do the same thing here. Then this we can connect all the way out to the 10, all the way to the 20. And we're going to make our first area for what will be high density, but we're going to have to move some people out to do that, unfortunately. So, because we're going to have to give people room to move in the short term to then upgrade it later on. So let's do this. We'll zone it out as residential. And as soon as we get to that milestone with the metro, we're also going to unlock high density residential and commercial. Now this middle block could be a good spot for some offices and commercial space. So we'll decide what we want to do with that, but I definitely wanted to save room in here for a train station to roll through. But let's start zoning out. Let's get people moving in because there's just not enough space for everybody right now. That should start filling up pretty quickly. We may as well connect our 6-lane roads here. And zone that off entirely. We're going to want to break out our landscaping tool and smooth things out a little bit. I'm not ready to start working with the terrain yet. I just really want this to be a nice flat area for now. And once we get off this tile, then we'll start kind of working with the challenges of the terrain and making things flow a little bit. But for right now, I just want to keep things as smooth and simple as possible, so that it all lines up real nice. We've got that too much soil problem. We're gonna have to dump some of it over here. In fact, I think this is where I was dumping it. So just slowly raising the level of the mountains back there in the background. But that gives us enough room to at least complete this block. So let's hit play again. Like maybe we'll speed things up a bit because I think we should be able to keep up with the demand here. For right now, because they want more commercial, we're going to do just these outer blocks right now in commercial. Oh, and I broke one of my rules. I only want commercial on Main Street. So we got to get to the Z-zone tool before people start moving in. And D-zone that space. Because that's going to be commercial. Let's get that all filled in. Do the same thing down here. That's going to be all residential, but we're going to have to move some people out once we stamp those roads down. Let's get power and water to these people while they are still moving in. Do that. We'll just bring it into the neighborhood for right now until it spreads a little bit more. And let's bring our water network out. That sweet spot is 440. You've probably heard me say it again and again if you're a regular viewer of the series. But we'll do that because we can afford to overlap a little bit more there. We've got that pipe just to the north of that main avenue. Let's bring down the next block or two. I know people are going to be moving in, and we're just going to have to solve that water problem soon enough. Let's just overlap that all the way. I don't know why it's so finicky sometimes. There we go. I know, because I'm playing on console, right? One of these things that's a little easier with a mouse is the fine tuning. Because it depends on how close you are, how zoomed in you are, how sensitive it is. That's the thing. I like to kind of stay zoomed out whenever possible. You get to see more of what's happening, but it's not always the easiest for making those snaps work. So if you're having problems snapping something on console, just zoom in a little bit and it makes it a ton easier. Okay, let's see if we can line this road up now. Then we'll zone all these neighborhoods off. We should be able to come down 2 there. Again, the idea behind these neighborhoods is to have all residential traffic, but not a lot of cross interference with our other avenues and side streets. So we're just trying to minimize, that should be connected all the way. We're just trying to minimize where we have intersections with those main avenues and keep them off the main throughways that are going to be connecting some of the larger areas of the city. So for right now, again, this is going to be low density, but we're going to switch all this over, and not all at once because we want people to move in, but we're going to kind of switch it over slowly but surely. Did I not zone this top part in commercial? Let's do that. So we've got some commercial buildings moving in there. Again, this middle part of the block is going to be trains coming through here. So we'll have to knock out a couple buildings in the process. But once we do that, and then we'll figure out where some of the side streets can best fit in. Maybe we'll even do like a little 45-degree angle between these streets, just to have some fun with it. Because right now everything is very much a grid, but we're doing that because we really want to support future expansion. Let's see if we can convince somebody to move in on the next block over. Or if we can get a commercial business up here, that would be awesome, because then we can just run the power to there and we don't have to eat up this zoning square that we're eating up right there. But we've met our residential demand. It looks like things are slowing down a little bit, but that's okay. We're still growing. We're just growing pretty slow right now. So let's take a look at some of our services while that's happening. This is always a good time. Like if you're not seeing a ton of growth, take a look at your info views and see maybe if there's a reason why, or there are problems with the city that you can solve. So electric, we're doing fantastic right now. We just dropped another power plant in towards the end, I think, of the last episode. Water availability is decent and in the green. We won't need to worry about that for a little bit. Police coverage is looking pretty good. We're definitely going to need to find spots for police, hospital, and fire over here as this new neighborhood starts to build out. We don't want to leave them uncovered. Healthcare, same sort of thing. Starts to get a little bit into the gray over here. So we're going to want to do healthcare coverage over there. Death care, we've got one cemetery right now. So if anybody dies at work in the industry, they're probably not going to get picked up anytime soon. Let's see here. General happiness, not too bad. Certainly we can work on it. One of the ways you can increase the happiness is to increase the land value, increase people's education. So obviously we can look at school coverage and see how that is. We can drop some parks in there to improve people's happiness. Population wise, looks like we're scaling up now, and we've got a fair decent spread of greenhouses, which is mostly families. The purple houses are mostly adults, and the gray houses, almost I guess brown, are mostly seniors. So a lot of families moving in here. Let's solve some of the education problems that I'm sure we're having right now. So we're almost at capacity with our elementary school. I should say schools. And we don't have good coverage over here. So what we could do is we could drop this in. I think if I do it there, it will let me route the street through, but let's find out before we get too far ahead of ourselves. Go back to the 6-lane avenue. We'll extend that out and it will let us. That's good. So that looks all lined up. Can we get one more neighborhood in? Looks like we can. So we'll be able to bring this, another 9-block neighborhood over here. This is going to be all high density residential over here by the river. We'll have a couple of those. So I'm thinking like, you know, 3 neighborhood wide, 2 tall of low residential, and then 3 by 2 of high density residential. And then we'll have our big kind of commercial and office space sort of here in the center. And then we can look at buying the tile to the south and kind of bringing that all the way down to the ocean there. But again, this is pretty boxy to start because I just wanted to show you kind of how to build a framework of roads that can support a ton of traffic and throughput. We don't have good garbage coverage over here. So maybe for right now, let's see how that... So we've definitely got to dump some soil. Let me dump some soil so that I can just have one more kind of flat link of road without any major hills or curves. So we'll come over here and we will raise the terrain. Let's reduce the strength. I think what we can do actually is let's level it, and we'll level it to like here, and just kind of slowly round out this hillside. We can ditch some of our soil. The lower you are when you start, the more soil you're getting rid of. So that has given us what looks like plenty of space here, where we can now go in and smooth out this last little bit. Level. Raise the strength. Oh, we were a little off there. That's okay, though. We can deal with that. We can deal with that. That's okay. Let's smooth that out now a bit. Reduce the strength. We'll reduce the size so that we don't soften up too much closer to the river. So I'll just make those bends in the terrain just a little less obvious. Okay, so we've still got people moving in. Let's plan for some expansion. Connect maybe our next block up here. So that has severed our power, but we can actually get rid of quite a bit of this power now, because now we can run it over here to this, and we don't have to tie up all this space zoning wise. So let's actually go back in and rezone that little patch. I wish it would remember kind of what it was, but you dezone it when you effectively drop that in there. So we've got the school coverage there. We've still got a little bit of money for some small roads, so let's do that. The big roads do eat up a ton of the money really fast. But let's keep building this out. So we'll get one more neighborhood here. Already got people moving in there. So we've got the industrial demand coming up. So what we're doing here, just to show you again what happened here. We've got this off-ramp T intersection coming off the highway. When you come off the highway, you're met with a one-way road that forces you into the industrial area and around it. And then there are one-way streets all the way around. And then on the other side, there's a one-way street that takes us back up to the highway. We'll also drop in a cargo train terminal in here when we can. But for right now, let's just zone out one more block here. So we'll come out 10, which just overlaps the zoning just enough. We go all the way down to the end with the one-ways and then connect that. And then we will zone this off as more industrial. Now what we've been trying to avoid, let me do it before I forget, is we're dezoning this very last pocket of street here, because we don't want people moving in exactly where that business is. Let's see where their front door is. This is exactly what we're trying to prevent. We don't want their front doors to their businesses to be on this street. And that's exactly what happened there. So we want the traffic to get off of this and turn down onto the street that it wants to go to, so that it's not causing any traffic jams on the outer ring there. Same thing over here on this very last column. We don't want any businesses moving in here, and it looks like I've already dezoned all that. Somehow when I did that, these tiny little 1x1 squares, somehow they're maintaining businesses in that space. So I don't know what they do. Probably Breaking Bad related, but let's dezone over here as well too, just so again they're not on the very ends of the streets. We want them to keep things moving, and we've got to provide them with water now. There we go. That's good coverage. Got people complaining over here now, so let's see where our water network is at. We'll just take this all the way over in preparation for zoning out this last block of the neighborhood. We've got the money to do it, so we may as well do it. And just to make sure we're covered, we won't really need that side of the street that much, but that's okay. And all that is covered as well, too. We're getting there. We still got a little ways to go to our next population bump, so let's get all these roads for these last couple blocks ready while we still got money in the bank. Again, really simple. We're just stamping out the same pattern for now. Should be 3 lines over, and that should be a nice straight square. Same sort of thing here. See how bumpy this road is next to the coastline. Looks pretty flat to me, so maybe it's pretty flat and boring, but it makes things nice and easy to line up. Makes all the space buildable, which is nice. And again, this is just kind of this first idea I had for a neighborhood. I want you to see kind of how much traffic it can support. Once we move all those high residential areas in there, you'll get a better feel for it. But it does a really good job at keeping the residential traffic kind of isolated and forcing it out to the main avenues, which really can support that traffic. So you don't have to keep it as linear. You know, all these roads could be curved. You could have fun with it. You could do some weird angles. But ultimately, I think if you take this approach of kind of having these neighborhoods as their own little isolated residential cross streets, keep in mind too, what's good to know is that the larger the road, the faster the traffic can move. And the AI likes to find the fastest path to get somewhere. So they will prefer the large streets rather than cutting through the neighborhood. So you'll notice that like all these cars, unless they're going into or coming out of the residential area, like they're just driving right by. The only cars that, you know, are kind of driving through came from within the residential area. So if a car is coming in, it's because it's parking, right? If a car's leaving, it originated in there, like that green one up in the top left. It's going to leave the zone now. So they prefer the faster roads whenever possible. Let's zone out this last bit of area for us. This should be the last zone that we need probably to hit that 8,500 population, hopefully. Because then what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to start moving people out to rezone that as high density. Again, I wanted to have my low density residential over here on the left. We'll change this to high density commercial, have a train station running through there, and then we'll switch this over to high density residential. So let's do our last set of blocks while we're waiting. And then we can start to kind of knock these out neighborhood by neighborhood. That we don't move out too many people at once. We don't want to crash the population, but we are going to have to move some people out to rezone this stuff. So fortunately, we appreciate your tax dollars, but not enough to prevent you from bulldozing your home. And for those of you of a certain age, maybe we'll go in and before we bulldoze and rezone, we'll rename somebody's house to Arthur Dent's house. Props if you got the reference. So let's see how close we are. 8,100. We're getting there. I would really like to be able to get to 85 without having to create another zone over here for residential, because hopefully we can do that with the space that we have. We'll give them one more block of industrial because they're asking for industrial space. There's just no workers right now because they won't make the trek over here. I could fix that with some bus routes or some better highway access from the city, but we're just going to try and squeak by until we get to that 8,500 and can start bringing people here via metro. It's going to be a lot easier. Wonder if that one little spot there, can somebody even move into that if it's not next to a road? I don't think so. Yeah, those aren't going to get moved into, so we may as well de-zone them just for my own obsessive compulsiveness, because they're never going to get built on. So no point in teasing people. You can build here, you can't have any trucks, you can't have any road access. Okay, let's also, while we're waiting for that milestone that we are about to hit very shortly, let's bulldoze some of these buildings. Try and keep the current residents happy. Let's see, water coverage. Do we extend enough? We did. We've got money in the bank, so we may as well get ready for our next problem. Our population explodes a little bit more. We are going to run into problems with water. So in the short term, just solve that problem before people start complaining. And we'll snap on a new water pump and sewer. We'll just watch that flow down the river for a second there. Isn't that beautiful? It's so cinematic. So disgusting. You can just see it all the way. Wow, that goes off the map. And there we go. Just had to take a minute to smell the roses, as it were, and now we're at 8,500. So this is where things start to get real exciting. We've unlocked the metro, we've unlocked blimps, we've unlocked high density residential and commercial. So let's go ahead and slap some of that down before we finish up for today. Trying to keep these relatively manageable in size. But I really wanted to get this piece done here. So this is going to be our high density residential. People haven't moved. Well, we've got a couple people that have moved in, but before too many people move in, let's stamp these zones over with high density residential. So I have to dezone, don't I? I can't just do that. I don't know why I thought I could do that. Let's dezone those neighborhoods that don't have too many people in them. That one's not too bad. That's got one house. Already got some apartment buildings moving in, so let's rezone these. I think it lets those buildings that are already there stay as low density, so we'll leave them in there for now. We'll go in and clean up the zoning later, but we've provided space now for some of our high density to move in. We will slowly but surely have all that high density eat up over here towards the center, where we're going to have kind of our leisure and nightclubs and entertainment, all that sort of stuff. So we'll zone this with a commercial specialization over here in the next episode. But before we pack it in too tight, I do want to start to build a train route through there, which actually brings up an interesting point. I don't unlock the trains until 1,200. So maybe what we'll do in the next episode, we have a need for industry that is growing quite a bit. We definitely have a need for more garbage pickup. So we're running into some problems. We'll do a little bit of maintenance on the next episode, and then we'll start to plan out our rail. And hopefully by the end of the next episode, we'll reach that population, can drop in our first train station, and if we have time, we'll start to build some train routes. If not, we'll save it for what will be episode 5, because this was episode 3. So we'll pick up right where we left off in this series. Again, I'm just trying to build it as we go, step by step. If you're looking for more of the tutorial thing, I do have kind of high-level overviews of each of the different milestones. There's a monument guide, so there's all sorts of stuff you can find on the channel. But if you just enjoy watching me build and sort of describing the process as I go through it, that's what this series is all about. So that was Let's Play City Skylines Episode 3, Town of Rockdale. And we're moving along nicely. So we'll continue to deal with these problems, address the industry demands, and now that we've stamped out this neighborhood system and you've got a feel for it and you'll be able to start to see it handling more and more traffic with the high rises coming in, now we want to start to look at other tiles and start building with the terrain a little more, and we'll get a little bit more funky with the roads and start to wrap stuff around and build some of these neighborhoods, but not necessarily in a grid. Same sort of style, same sort of function, but maybe wrapping the roads a little bit around the terrain and just having some fun with it. You know, you gotta have fun with it. It's gotta be fun, right? Otherwise, what's the point? So, yeah, we could stamp out grid after grid after grid, but I think you got the point now. This is a really efficient way to get a lot of traffic in and out of your individual neighborhoods with this sort of a collection of streets. And again, it'll become more and more evident as we go through and see this all fill up with high rises, and we'll have commercial office space and a really busy area in the central part of town here. But even with all the people, these road networks should still be able to support just fine. You know, we've got traffic here on the highway, and you can see there's a lot of trucks because I still have a little bit of industry, a tiny little bit of industry up here, and a tiny bit of industry can cause all kinds of traffic problems. So we do have some of that backing up onto the highway now. One of the things that we will look at next is potentially how to snake this highway around maybe and have like a bypass highway that gets you on and off into this zone from this side of the city, just to take some of that stress and that traffic away from up there. But we'll see. We'll kind of learn as we go. Town of Rockdale coming along nicely. We've got a lot of work to do, a long way to go before we're going to be dropping in any monuments or anything like that. But hopefully we'll have some fun with it, and I'll kind of talk you through the process again in this series, and hopefully you enjoy it. If you did, please hit that like button because it does help the channel a lot. If you're new here, consider subscribing for more City Skylines and other great gaming videos coming to the channel soon. While you're at it, hit that bell to get notifications because it's very easy for a small channel like mine to get lost in the shuffle. But until the next one, this is Move the Mouse, signing off.